Have you ever stopped and wondered, who actually controls the policies that shape what you study, or how the entire Indian workforce is getting trained for the future? I mean, it's a massive responsibility. It touches almost every single family in the country. Understanding the people behind these sweeping decisions, it really matters to all of us. Why? Because the path they chart out today is quite literally your economic reality tomorrow.
So, welcome to today's analysis. We're going to be looking at a figure who holds exactly that kind of power, Dharmendra Pradhan. In this explainer, we're tracing the ascent of a true strategist. We'll be drawing directly from his documented background to figure out how he reached this current position and, well, what his trajectory actually reveals about his whole approach to governance.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at his current impact and roots. Then, number 2, his rise in electoral politics. Third, his key ministerial portfolios. And finally, number 4, his role as the party strategist.
Let's jump right into part 1, current impact and roots.
So his story actually kicks off back in 1969 in Tulchar. It's a pretty well-known coal mining town over in the eastern state of Odisha. And growing up in a region that's just defined by heavy industry and hard work, it naturally shapes your perspective on what really drives an economy. From these grounded early days in his home state, he pursued his higher education locally. He eventually earned a Master of Arts degree in anthropology from Utkal University, which actually is a super fitting academic background when you think about it. I mean, studying human societies and cultures, that's perfect for someone who would eventually end up managing the human capital for the entire nation. His foundation is just firmly planted in the very soil where he grew up. Now, he was born into a very strong political lineage. His dad, Dr. Dharmendra Pradhan, was a former central minister and a highly respected senior BJP leader. But here's the really fascinating contrast. He didn't just, ride his father's coattails into the political arena. No, he started at the absolute grassroots level in the AVP student organization. He spent years doing the really unglamorous on-the-ground work of student politics, actively climbing the party ranks strictly on his own merit. Over time, that independent hustle propelled him all the way to becoming a national general secretary. It's honestly a unique profile. You have someone with the background and the connections who still chose to put in the grueling independent groundwork.
All right, moving on to part 2, rise in electoral politics. Let's track his trajectory.
His political adaptability becomes incredibly clear when we actually examine his electoral footprint across the map. He started out entirely local, getting elected as an MLA for the Palahala constituency in the Odisha Assembly back in 2000. But then, just 4 years later, boom, he steps onto the massive national stage as an MP in the Lok Sabha. But pay close attention to the geographical shifts that happen next, because they're huge. In 2012, he was elected to the Rajya Sabha, that's the upper house of parliament, representing the state of Bihar. And then in 2018, he's elected again, but this time representing Madhya Pradesh. I mean, this is not common. Going from a local state representative in Odisha to a versatile national figure, trusted to advocate for completely different regions, that requires immense political agility and some deep, deep trust from local state leadership.
And zooming in on that 2004 election to the 14th Lok Sabha for a second, that was a major turning point. Interestingly enough, the Deorgarh constituency he won was the exact one previously held by his father. It was literally a passing of the torch. That moment officially solidified his transition out of state-level politics and permanently into the national parliamentary arena.
That brings us to part 3, key ministerial portfolios. Let's examine these executive power shifts. So looking at his roles over time, this transition reveals a dramatic, really defining shift in his governmental responsibilities. During the previous Modi administrations, he was directly managing heavy-duty, critical infrastructure as the Minister of Petroleum, Natural Gas, and Steel. Think about that. He was literally managing the physical energy and the raw building blocks of the nation's developing economy. But fast forward to today, and he's the Minister of Education and the Minister of Skilled Development and Entrepreneurship. That is a massive pivot. He went from overseeing physical commodities to taking direct charge of India's human capital, its youth, and its intellectual energy. It's a really clear signal of how his administrative experience with vast, complex systems is now being applied to the most vital resource India actually has, its future workforce.
And finally, part 4, the party strategist. Let's go behind the scenes. Because beyond his public-facing cabinet titles, his strategic responsibilities have been extensive and demanding. Serving as the General Secretary of the BJP, that's a role that requires some serious organizational vision. In 2011, he was handed crucial, complex responsibilities in the state of Jharkhand. But even more notably, he was a key architect behind the party's major Lok Sabha election victory in Bihar back in 2014. And look, winning in Bihar isn't just about showing up. It requires a hyper-complex understanding of social engineering and grassroots strategy. Because of these distinct, high-stakes organizational successes, he is widely regarded as a trusted confidant of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and party leader Amit Shah. So he isn't just executing policy in parliament, he has spent years building the political machinery behind the scenes.
Which kind of leaves us with this final, provocative question. How will this strategist's extensive political background actually shape the future of India's education and workforce? We've seen his unique blend of grassroots student organizing, his high-stakes electoral strategy across multiple states, and his management of massive physical infrastructure. And now, he's applying all of that diverse, hard-earned experience to the minds, education, and skills of the next generation. It is just a fascinating combination of skills for such a vital, forward-looking role. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly encourage you to keep this comprehensive background in mind as you watch India's educational and skilling policies unfold in the years to come.